Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enlightened Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enlightened Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Podcast. I am your host, Jen, and my very special guest today is Carli, who is a Psych-K facilitator and trained Montessori teacher. She works with parents and children struggling with anxiety, stress, or limiting beliefs connected to various issues, including learning difficulties, family dynamics, and relationships. Carli uses her understanding of human development and Psych-K, which is a subconscious healing modality, to deeply support parents to feel more empowered, build self-esteem, and set up for success, to parent from their intuition and foster strong, confident children. This was an incredible conversation that we got to have. Some parts of it you might find a little bit controversial, as we do speak about the current education system that we have in Australia. However, if you've got children, it's got some fantastic tips and tricks on how to support children through their growing years. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome, Carli. Thank you so much for joining me on the Enlightened Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. All's going good and happy and enjoying the weather. How are you going?
I am wonderful. I'm so excited for our conversation today. I know that it's going to be really, really epic based on a little bit of a chat that we've had previously. Now, you're a Psych-K facilitator and trained Montessori teacher. Tell us, first of all, what that is and tell us about the magic that you bring to the world.
Awesome, sure. So, Psych-K is a subconscious healing modality where you connect to somebody's subconscious and particularly their subconscious thoughts or beliefs that are causing any stress or anxiety. And then through the process, we shift it through what's called whole brain integration activities. So that's pretty much saying, I am safe in this belief, in this thought pattern, in this experience, to shift how you show up or perceive a specific situation in your life.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It sounds a bit like hypnosis. Is it similar to hypnosis?
Yeah, all of these modalities that kind of connect to the subconscious, they all have that similarity of, if it's a hypnosis or the tapping or even art therapy where you're kind of disconnecting from the conscious, prefrontal cortex and just going deep into the subconscious where the juicy stuff is and really coming out and understanding what's there to shift and clear it and make it better or help you support you clear anything that's not helping you reach your potential.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. And you're speaking straight to my soul as a hypnotherapist. When you were saying that, I'm like, oh, yes, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And also you're a trained Montessori teacher. So for those listening that are like, what is Montessori? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So Maria Montessori was an educator. She actually was a doctor and an anthropologist before she came into education. And she pretty much observed children and child development and created schools or environments to set them up for success. And she observed the school system and she observed children and parents with children. And she was like, what are you doing? And created pretty much a space and a experience for children to firstly be respected for their natural development. So they are supported for who they are and what they're doing, and then set it up to support them again, reach their potential, be respected for who their individual person, individual self is, and support them to be independent.
Wow. And it's such a different experience and different way of education than traditional mainstream school, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so, with the work that you do as a Psych-K facilitator and the Montessori teaching, do they cross over or are they two separate things that you do?
So they cross over because I work a lot with parents and children of all ages. And really, with my work, is educating and empowering parents, but then supporting them with the real fear and the real projections and the real, experience of being a parent and going, I hear you, I validate you, and now we can shift it on a subconscious level. Because yes, we can speak about it, and yes, we can work through things, but the shift that can happen when you use that subconscious modality, as you would know, is incredible. So, yeah, I definitely bring the two. I bring that human development aspect, my knowledge of children and their development, observing them, observing how parents interact with it. So, I support that while also doing the Psych-K work.
That's amazing. What do you see, with the clients that you have, Carly, like the people that are coming through, what are some of the biggest things that they're coming to you with, like those deep subconscious beliefs or blocks that they may be experiencing?
So they're all different and they can be so different. And as a teacher, I think what I saw the most in children, and then obviously this is in adults, is kind of this um, doubt and lack of confidence in self. Because from the school system and culture and the mainstream society, it's kind of very hard to branch out and be ourselves when we've always been told, like, do the 9 to 5, do follow the way things are, and your heart is earning for more and you want to be more, but then you kind of have this fear that's been embedded in you about being your own authentic self. So I always say, be confident, fearless, and unapologetically you, because we're so fearful to be our unique self. And so that's quite broad. And then within that, I see a lot of this people pleaser behavior. I have to do what other people want me to do. I have to do what's going to, support my family and my friends. And I'm scared of what people think. I can't express my true self, which, leads to anxiety, depression, these panic attacks, as well as boundaries that, oh, we've been told to do things for X, Y, and Z. We've been told to do things for the sticker. We've been told to do things because it's going to make my family happy and my teacher happy and to be successful, and then really putting up those boundaries to say, hey, what is it that I need? What's my intuition or my inner self telling me? And being able to branch out and do those things that we've never done before.
Wow. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is that you get to work with, parents. It has the ripple effect to children. Before you became a Montessori teacher, so obviously you have to, get your education degree and then you do a diploma in Montessori teaching. Did you work in the state school education system, or did you go straight into Montessori?
So I at university did an education and a psychology degree. And I love children. So that was always going to be this avenue. Even when I didn't even know that, it was like when I was like, obviously, why didn't I know this? Because I've just always been, connected to children and pulled to children. I was looking into psychology and I thought, no, like, why are we going to sit and talk about our problems? Let's just, go to the root and support children to be these strong, confident individuals. And I went to my first mainstream placement in a school, and I just was like, well, this is the problem. This is why people need psychologists. So I never worked in a mainstream school. I very quickly and straight away went into only working in Montessori. I observed schools and I had to work in mainstream schools for placements. But what I saw, and then from what I saw, I went and researched and I was like, this has nothing to do with human development. This came out of a war. What are the psychological implications of this space and what is it telling humans? And I very strategically knew that being a teacher, you learn through the culture. And I didn't want to pick up bad habits at a mainstream school. So I didn't ever work. I had experience and placements, 3-week blocks. But no, I didn't ever work in a mainstream school for longer than my experiences I had to have at university.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's amazing that you didn't have to step into that, because it's quite a different world. Let's talk about mainstream schooling. Let's talk about how, I'm going to say, broken the system is for education and how it's letting children down. And I say this lovingly, and anyone that's, got children in mainstream schooling, whether you're aware of this or not, there is a big gap in what is provided and what children actually need. And we only know this because when we have the likes of the Montessori programs or the Steiner programs, we then realize that there is a gap in that mainstream education. What are some of the major things that you saw when you were doing your prac, Carli, that you noticed in these mainstream schools that these children were either experiencing or missing out on?
So age stage human development is so unique and complicated. So to put children at one stage in a whole class is, extremely unfair, because a teacher is going to have to teach 30 children with all different needs. And that setup in itself is not supporting success, you know, unless you're like an extremely talented teacher who can break it up and really hear and support every child. And teachers are not set up to do that because you don't have enough time, you don't have enough planning, you don't have enough energy to really support every individual child in your class. And two children teachers who do that with children, I don't know how they do it, because yeah, I just obviously needed to go into a space of one-on-one to deeply support quality over quantity. But yeah, it's very hard to reach every child. So what I observed is a teacher gave a lesson. There was children who had no idea what was going on. They really needed a lot of support. There was children who were so clever and they were so far in advance. This was like a waste of their hour. And then some children, who were in between, cool, it was a bit of practice. And maybe a couple of children, it was perfect for them. And then as a result, the children that, it was so easy, they finished, colored in. The children who were struggling, they never finished. So they were just having workbooks and workbooks of unfinished work. There is no time to do this unfinished work. You just never finish. It's just like done. So I saw that children, it was hard to support children and get to everyone. And I speak to teachers in the mainstream system, and they say that they're like, I love this child, I know what they're doing and I know what they need, but I just can't get them, and I can't get to them in such a short amount of time. That's the one thing, it's not supporting this individual growth. The second thing is these psychological messages we're giving children in a system like that and in society. So stickers, do it for the reward, do it for the money, do it for being told that you're amazing. And this is children learning how good it feels to get the external validation. But when it comes to doing what you need to do and what you want to do, you need to have a very strong internal validation and internal push. And that's not really supported unless in a mainstream. It's not, because you've got so many children and this is the way they're doing it. unless there are schools out there, but I don't know of any, the mainstream schools that are just taking that reward system out. So yeah, psychological messages like that get, do it for the external validation, external dopamine hit, as well as the exams, as well as the what's it called? The A's, the B's, the giving children these marks. Like, we are developing our brains. We're always growing, and you're giving a child a mark for that. It's so unfair. And like, literally, there's no other place where we can't make mistakes or do an exam again. They're getting one chance, they're getting a mark for it, and it's done. Like, these psychological messages are absurd and really unfair for a brain that's developing.
Wow. And it's such an eye-opening thing to really dive into, isn't it? So we've got children that are going through the mainstream education system, and you mentioned about, the psychological impacts, go through having, tests and being graded while they're in this imprinting age, and, their brains are developing. What effects are we then seeing as they're growing up into those later teen years and into adults as well? What impact is this having on them?
Well, we all know that mental health is such a big issue in society, and it seems to be on the rise and always spoken about. And, there's beautiful ways this is really being implemented to support it on a holistic level, to really support that in our school systems. And so, what are we doing wrong? I just feel like we are not doing enough. So, it's that supporting people and supporting children to have this high emotional intelligence, high emotional skills, the ability to confront, the ability to have boundaries and set up boundaries and do things selfishly, because that's actually going to support everyone else around them, having that understanding, helping, children and parents and people just deal with issues that arise, because we're humans. And I feel like people don't, we're getting better at it, or I would hope that we're getting better at it, but people don't have these skills. They're not set up for this success to deal with anxiety and the issues and, all that resilience that you need to deal with life. We think we do it. We say we're building resilience, but on like a deep level, I don't feel we have strong individuals that are really connected to their inner world, their inner self, or their intuition. Or if they are, they don't act on it enough. So then they come up against this, like, I feel this way, but I'm not going to do it. Or I feel this way, but I don't want to see this. So then subconsciously or consciously, they choose not to see it, because there's almost a fear tactic there to safely be themselves. And it's all about bringing up these individual children who can be these individual adults and love themselves and not be part of a group and try fit in with the group, just be their own unique quirky self. So I think those are those implications. It's the mental health, and it's the inability to just be your true self, and have to kind of work and deal with it, and only jump into it when we've had our quarter life crisis, and then our half life crisis, our life crisis, all those things.
Yeah, yeah. So, what would you say? Because, I mean, look, Montessori schools aren't everywhere. We have one here in Brisbane where I am. I know that they're dotted around sort of different areas, and of course, it comes at a premium price, like you would expect for an independent or a private school. For those that don't have access to sending their children to a Montessori school, who are in the mainstream but are listening, going, well, of course, I want the best for my child. I want to help them, grow and have the best, possible experience through their schooling years and support, their psychological development. What are some of the things that parents can be doing for the children to also nurture the way Montessori does, but in that mainstream education environment?
Yeah. So Children are always going to listen to and respect their primary caregivers. So, no matter where you are and what situation you're in, if you are supporting them in the home, you're going to be building up incredible skills that will last a lifetime. And people always ask me very specific questions, if it's on technology. Is it okay if we watch this movie? Is it okay if we do this or that? There is no right or wrong, but the way that we do it and the implications that can have long lasting impact or effect is what we need to look at. So, for example, with that situation of having a movie, you can watch a movie and then you can discuss it afterwards and go, oh, what did it make you feel? And what were the themes? And it can be this beautiful conversation and huge learning experience. So, that can be a way to use technology and use Disney shows and Disney movies for incredible learning. And it's the same if children are coming home and they're getting stressed with things that are happening at school, or just they're absorbing it in life and from culture, because culture's like this. It's having those discussions of like, are you feeling anxious? Let's talk to the anxiety. Let's do things as a family to honor our inner voice, to listen to our anxiety and see how we need to support it, to do mindfulness work, to, model our boundaries and support children to speak their truth and have those conflict resolutions in the home, even though they can be time consuming, and, hold anger and hold tantrums and say, what's more here? And build and model that emotional intelligence. So there is so much you can be doing, and so many practical tools that I could just list. And the other one that I always stress, and this is why I work with parents, I work with children, but I'll always work with parents first. Because if you are doing the work and integrating these skills, you will be modeling them, you will be clearing trauma or fear or these projections, and your happiness and your calmness will just have this huge ripple effect onto your children like no other.
Yes, I have noticed that with my children as well. And we have little practices that we do. We have little things that we do every evening. So it's just the three of us around the dinner table, and we have what's called a happy sandwich. And so we say a happy thing about our day, a sad thing about our day, happy thing about our day. So we squish the sad with the happy. We say what we're grateful for. We do an acknowledgement for each other and ourselves. Then we say, what is our intention for tomorrow? Where is there room for growth, and how we're feeling? So we go around and we talk about how things are and what we acknowledge about each other. And then sometimes I'll do a meditation with the children before bed, or sometimes if they've had, especially my daughter who's 9, so there's a lot happening, with the girls in the class. Like, I don't think you can ever escape that in the school. It's very much dealt with in a different way at Montessori. But it's the girl stuff still exists in schools. But what I found is that she was sort of going to bed still holding on to emotions and some really big feelings. And so instead of her lying there going, I can't sleep because I'm thinking about this, we created a little ceremony, like a closing down ceremony of our day. And then we got to talk about our feelings and almost like pick up this energy from us and just let go, or give it to the flame of the candle that we had lit, handing it over, so that we're not going into sleep time holding on to these things, and that we've let it all go, or we've let things go at the end of the week so we can enjoy the weekend or the school holidays. And this is stuff that I've come up with, obviously as a coach and as a therapist, but they encourage these things at the school as well. And this is why I love the work that you do, because it's so important to work with parents, because they, like, our children model everything from us. Who we are in the world and who we be is, we're showing them, we're basically teaching them how to do life and how to be human. And this is why it's so important that, that what we want our children to be and become is who we be in the world.
Totally. Yeah. And once we have these huge epiphanies of like, oh, I'm holding in my anger, I need to just like release it and then just cry and come into my sadness and express it. As soon as you're doing that and you're integrating it, you can first model it, but then you can guide it because you've done it. And then children, oh, it's just so easy because they just really, they're not like, what's this weird thing? They're just like, okay, let's do this. Oh, it's supporting me. Um, and yeah, we all need this validation because we're so sensitive, and we pick up these things that are going to arise, but they just, if we have the skills to deal with them, we are going to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, Carly, that I've noticed, and more so in the last few years, is just how busy we've become as parents. And I mean, if you look at the state of the world, I mean, we've got interest rates going up here in Australia. We've been in a housing crisis. We've, we're looking as though we're heading into a recession. We had a pandemic where a lot of people faced uncertainty around keeping their homes, keeping their jobs, stability. We all got thrown into, a fight or flight and, this nervous system response of creating safety. And if people don't know how to support their immune systems, everyone sort of goes into this fried state where we're all stressed, and then we're having to work harder or longer hours to make ends meet. There's so much data coming through about how many families are actually struggling. And so the family unit themselves is not what it used to be 20, 30 years ago, where mum was able, mum, for example, was able to stay home. It was dad in my family. But, there was a parent that was able to stay home and, do the cooking, do the cleaning, do the homework, all of that. We're now seeing, parents having to work harder and longer hours to make more money to just simply survive. Let's talk through like the ripple effect that that's having on children, because this is out of people's control as well. Like parents are doing their best with what they've got and what they know in the situation that we are collectively in. It's not to put parents down to say, well, you're not being a present parent, but we're seeing so much of it. Like, what's your experience working with parents and then these family dynamics that are going through a lot of stress, in that family system? How is that affecting everybody in the family?
So as I said before, I planned and didn't want to work in a mainstream school because of the culture. And obviously all teachers, they do this profession because they love and care for children. So, it's not the teachers, it is the culture, it's what's set up. And these are the psychological messages that then come through to the children. So with Psych-K, we work on what are these subconscious messages that are coming through in the situation. And Bruce Lipton, who just loves energy psychology, yeah, you're nodding your head. We all know about him, and he is connected a lot to Psych-K. He says that your perception shapes your reality, and you can create heaven in hell through shifting your beliefs. So it's not about, saying, oh, your situation's bad and blah, blah, blah. It's about really seeing where you're at and navigating the stress to be in a calm place and space and gratitude with it. And because children, they absorb it, before the age of 7, they've got this, Maria Montessori calls it the absorbent mind, where you just take anything and everything in. It's the most potent. But still, after that age, children are feeling the stress, and it's not verbalized or spoken about, but they can feel it, and it manifests in dis-ease, bloating and digestive issues or chronic health issues. So they're taking it in. So it's not about what your situation is, because everyone has different situations and we all go through really tricky situations, but it's how you can change and shift and navigate those situations with this gratitude, with this calm, with this peace. And when you see it in that way, it doesn't matter what your situation is, but if you are dealing with stress, there are always alternative ways to say, this isn't working for our mental health, and then how can we switch it around? So, yeah, that was a bit more broader than going into the nitty-gritty specifics, but yeah, that a homeless person who doesn't know where they're going to sleep the next day can feel so chilled and calm, and they've chosen to kind of not buy into that situation where someone can feel so unsafe in their home in this big mansion. So it's our perception. Our perception shapes our reality, and it's understanding where we're at and what we got and dealing with that situation, and then always taking action for better. But yeah, in a way that's going to support everyone instead of being this fight, flight, fearful choice.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And everything you just said was, so wise, because we've got to look at our perception. Like it comes back down to our subconscious beliefs and the way we view the world. And like you said, that 0 to 7 years of age, I call it imprinting age. And then it's really solidifying from, 7 to 14. Children are really making up their mind about the world and really solidifying those belief systems in that time. And so for me, I'm really glad I've had the awareness that that's how it works. I can be really, really mindful of my children in that age, and then obviously moving forward as well. When you've got parents that are coming to you to seek out your help, Carli, what state are they in? Like, where are they at in their lives? Where are their children at? Like, what happens when they get to you? What
Sure.
are they experiencing?
So I get people from all walks of life, who find me and connect to me, and they might have issues kind of within themselves, and they're just stressed and they need to do a bit of work, or they're feeling some anxiety around their children, or their children are having specific serious issues. If it's, for example, like your child, she's 9, she's going through a bit of a developmental stage and age, which I won't get into, and then also dealing with those social things. So if it's with a parent who's dealing with a situation with their child, I will work with the parent to just clear any of their anxiety or projections or stress around the situation. Because, you might go, oh my God, I was bullied as a child and no one really understood me as a child and blah, blah, blah. And then that stress, you just imprint it or you project it onto your child. And then I'll get to work with the child, which is really fun because I get this holistic picture where I get to be that auntie or be that external person out of the family to support the child and do work with the child and really like help them be this sovereign person on top of their emotions, but then really see the bigger picture of what's going on with the parents, because I'll do both the parents and I'll maybe do the siblings and go, oh, you're both holding on to that. So this is a real big projection. So I will deal with anything that a parent is going through. And it might be guilt, it might be anxiety, it might be stress, it might be boundaries. And sometimes they'll be really consciously aware. I've done the conscious work, I've seen the mainstream psychology, I've done X, Y, and Z, but I need something deeper. I need a shift. So they're so aware, but they just need that work to really get into the subconscious beliefs to clear it. And then sometimes, they'll just be like, oh, I'm just feeling a bit, unsure or confused. I have imposter syndrome. I want to be with my children, but I'm a bit guilty because I want to be going back at work. And then we'll delve into the session, and it's very Montessori style and guided by the individual. And it will be, fear of money and money mindset and perceptions around money and lack, that then they're feeling like they can't be at home with the children or they can't be in a career. So, the subconscious is so big. So, yeah, we're taking on 40 billion parts of information in our subconscious regularly. So, there's so much there. So, yeah, so I have parents or, clients who are just ready to do that inner work, or they're coming with real stress, real anxiety, and they're ready to shift it. They're ready to deal with whatever's going on. And specifically if it's family related, because I've done the Montessori course and I've done a few, I've also done the 0 to 3, I can really understand, okay, here are some practical tools to use in the home, which you seem to do and have a lot of, that you've really put in to your rhythm of your family, because you know how important they are.
Yeah. What I'm seeing in some of the people that I know is a movement around unschooling and homeschooling to avoid having to go through the mainstream system. And one of the things I have observed on, I guess, more of a personal level, because I try not to pass judgment on this, is the reason that people are going down this path. I mean, obviously we've spoken about, the experience that children have in mainstream, and I completely understand it. But I'm also seeing a projection of what the parent went through when they went through the school system and perhaps felt, either bullied or left behind or not nurtured. And therefore it's like, well, I can't put my child through that system. Completely 100% agree with that. And is the unschooling or homeschooling movement a better option for some children than mainstream schooling, in your professional opinion?
Yeah, well, you and I haven't spoken about this, but I started out when I left from the school system and during the whole COVID, being this big homeschool advocate, and I work as a homeschool consultant. So I work a lot with parents, and it's just funny because people come to me with this children having deep anxiety in the school system. And I can come and be like, there's other options, there's alternative schools, and you can always homeschool. And people are like, what, homeschool? Like, it feels so foreign. And then, like, slowly but surely, I teach them more about it. And I write people's homeschool, NESA plans with them, or NESA is the New South Wales curriculum name. It would be different in Queensland where you are, but I show them, like, these are the curriculum outcomes and this is what you're doing at home, so you're actually reaching them and you're teaching them. So there's no right or wrong way. Obviously we all have to just support our children in the way that we intuitively think is going to be the best. But if children are struggling in school, if you are struggling and trying to have this lifestyle, you don't need to do it. There's other ways. So homeschooling is this incredible way to explore it. And there's people coming out with, understanding and seeing education in a different way. You don't have to be at a desk from 9 to 5. You don't have to be reading a book to engage into such deep knowledge. There are so many ways to get skills. And actually, through sitting and playing for half an hour, a child is like quickly going to get these like addition mathematical skills, like, oh my God, while being obsessed with a game. So I am a huge homeschooling, unschooling advocate. Montessori, I really believe, she just created like a little homeschooling little room where you set children up in ways to develop practical skills, develop emotional intelligence, develop these beautiful materials to use that mathematical brain and write beautiful letters and develop writing skills. So I'm a huge advocate. I really do think that's what like Montessori is in essence, because the brain develops, and if you're observing it and you're giving it what it needs, it will just go so far. So yes, huge advocate for the unschooling, homeschooling community. And if anyone's interested in it, I've done like a free course on it. But if anyone is interested in it, look into it, be pulled to it, because yeah, it's alternative and it's having to reframe maybe your mainstream life and seeing things differently. But it can be so beneficial for children who are not coping in the mainstream school, or you just really understand that they need more.
And how does it go with, I guess, the social aspect of interacting? Do you find other homeschooling families that you then go on excursions with, like you might go to the park or something, so that the children are still getting that social interaction?
Yeah. So in a mainstream school, there aren't really authentic social experiences in the same way you're going to get in a not in a outside in the bigger world, as well as in a Montessori school. So a Montessori school sets things up so that children have to ask for help, children have to wait their turn, children have to have these explosions because they're constantly talking to other children and working together, and then find ways to compromise. So that is set up in a Montessori school. And in, a homeschooling situation where you're dealing with the real world, those are going to come together because it's real life problems. You might be going to park and having to meet people and seek out friends. So the socializing is, in my opinion, a lot more authentic and a lot more real, which is the way that adults have to, connect and make friends and deal with issues. At a mainstream school, if there's an issue in the classroom, you're dealing with 30 children, you're like, okay, stop just that. You do this, you do that, we're going to take that away. And hopefully the teacher can come and sit down with them, in a different time, but it rarely happens. And it takes a lot of energy on top of everything else. And yeah, homeschooling, we've got Facebook, we've got just huge ways of connecting. It's huge and it's growing. There's pods, there's, people getting together and collaborating. There's homeschool meetups. There's lots of homeschool programs, for drama. Or I know someone just told me the other day they go and spend the whole day like working or volunteering at stables for horses.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, one day a week you're like working with animals at a stable. How does that work? But these, children are having such a rich educational experience. So yes, that kind of social debate, I think it comes from maybe people who lived on farms or lived excluded from society, and their child sat and did half an hour of maths in a workbook by themselves, and then English, and then was isolated from community. But children need to be around children, and we have so many ways of doing that with classes, gatherings, meetups. There's never an issue, and just ways to collaborate. You have a skill, and then you invite other children and share it, and you cook at one person's house, and you learn a language at somebody else's house, and you all come together, and it's beautiful. It's tribal. I have a homeschooling family, and someone asked to take photos of them, and they said it reminded him of kind of like a group of gorillas, or those old school, the way we used to be, because everyone was really close, and all the homeschooling parents were parents to all the children, and it was this community where it was just that connection.
It's that village, isn't it? Like it takes a
Totally.
village, and it's so true. One of the things that we were told at our induction, heading into Montessori, was that generally, if children, once about the age of grade 4, so what's that, about 8 or 9, I think, once they've gone through mainstream school, they're quite conditioned by that age. And then to step into a Montessori or even a homeschool environment takes really a lot of unraveling, and sometimes it can't be undone,
Mm.
which I mean is a bit of a red flag within itself. In your opinion, is that true? Like if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to explore, the Montessori way of life or homeschooling, but their child is at an age where they're so conditioned into mainstream, is there an unconditioning or a deconditioning process that a child can go through in order to thrive in a different environment if they weren't thriving in mainstream?
Oh, it's never too late. I have grandparents that I work with doing Psych-K, and so yes, it might be a little bit harder, but it's going to be easy to decondition a 12-year-old, or a 14-year-old who is deeply, if it's depressed or anxious. And, as humans, we are very adaptable to change. Children are so much easier. Obviously, the younger they are, the better. But if you are a 50-year-old child or a 10-year-old child, there's always space to change. And, it might take a little bit longer and it might be different. But, I unschooled myself going into Montessori because I was in a mainstream school and I loved school. I wanted to be a teacher. But only once I really observed the psychological damage, and I always had that psychology brain and saw these psychological impacts, which obviously led me to my work that I'm doing now. But yeah, I had to unschool myself too and be like, oh no, it's actually, they shouldn't be quiet. The children should be talking. This is the age and stage for really chatting away, because that's where they reach these big connections through that social connection and conversations. So never ever too late. And it's, if someone is unhappy, if it's in yourself or if it's your child, do whatever you need to do to support that happiness, because we know in the end that's all that matters.
Yeah. And it honestly, I feel it starts with the parents. Like, work on yourself, do the inner work on yourself. And then that ripples out, because once you start to shift your beliefs and your perceptions and that deep seated conditioning, that then has a ripple effect out to your children and then the family environment. And then obviously, that's shaping their future as well. Like, that's shaping their existence.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Carli, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously we'll link to everything in the show notes. How do people come into your field to work with you?
So I have, my Instagram that I'm on regularly. I've got a website there that you'll share with everyone. Mostly on my Instagram, I continuously do free talks. If you're interested in what I'm saying and wanting to hear more, that's a good place to find me. And then, I send the link, and it's normally a Zoom, and there's normally a recording. And that's where I really speak about ages and stages of development, supporting the child under 6, supporting the child over 6, supporting the teenager. And on my Instagram, on my website, there's my email. You can always reach out for questions. You can book in a call where I can tell you where you can tell me what's going on, and I can tell you if it will be a good fit or point you in the right direction. So yeah, my Instagram is a great place to get to know me a little bit better. And you can always shoot me a DM and say, hey, is this, what I should be doing with my child? What do you think about this? I'm always so happy to answer questions. And then, yeah, my website's there to get to know a bit about me and my story and who I am.
Oh, you're amazing. And it's such an honor to have you on the show and the incredible work that you do. I have one last question for you before we wrap up, Carli. And to you, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, what is the meaning of life? Wow, that's like my last question. Like, do I have like 30 seconds? Explain to me, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? So, I guess the meaning of life to me is pretty much doing, this work to get to know ourselves better, to understand who we are and how we serve this world. Because and we've spoken a lot about Montessori today, and she sums it up really beautifully, where when you're sharing lessons with children, you're sharing them to them, but you're sharing how they're all interconnected. And, a bee has no idea that it is pollinating flowers when it goes from one flower to the next. The wind has no idea that it is bringing moisture to water a plant somewhere across the globe. So yeah, our work is to understand who we are and be ourselves unapologetically, confidently, and fearlessly, because it will have such a ripple effect on the world. And once we are in peace with ourselves, we can really be in peace with everyone around us and model that and create this peaceful society that we are so needing.
I love that. Thank you so much, Carli, for being such an incredible guest on the Enlightened podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.